me felt like a very profound day. I got up really early so that I could be prepared, because once I left, that was it. I wasn't home until after 6:30 in the evening, sort of thing. But as I sat here during the 9D transformational breathwork, where the theme was reprogramming the subconscious mind. And it was the very first journey that I offered that was more of a down regulation journey, so it wasn't all super active breath and getting into non-ordinary states of consciousness by intentional hyperventilation. This was super deep and slow and low, and it was incredible. And so we had a full house, excuse me, and afterwards, during the shares, there was so much that was offered. And there was like the spectrum of people who were in euphoria and joy, and then other people who were in extreme pain and sorrow and not being able to understand what was going on for them and why couldn't they get past, a certain thing. Intellectually, they know, they're taking all the steps, they're doing all the reading, taking all the action sort of thing, and yet life can still feel so hard. And it reminds me of a client that I was working with recently as well. And I've gone through this. I've stood on the stage and talked about life is hard for myself. And I can say that throughout my 7 years of spiritual and consciousness studies, when I started out with the foundational classes, and then moving on to only 3 months before graduating as a minister, only 3 months before, after those 6.5 years plus, finally, it felt like for me the stuff that I had been studying and practicing up here was starting to drop down into here and integrate in the entire body instead of just being all up here. Because for those of you familiar with science of mind can be a very intellectual pursuit, right? But even towards the end of his life, Ernest Holmes, who was the author of Science of Mind and many other books and the founder of religious science, part of the New Thought movement, the global movement, he opened up his heart that much more. He became more poetic and softer in his writing towards the end of his life. But a lot of the stuff, including the text, it's not really a text, but it kind of is, the big fat book called The Science of Mind, it can be very in your brain, in your mind sort of thing, very, very intellectual. And so what was so neat yesterday was during the 9D journey share and then during the forgiveness class, how much honesty, how much authenticity, how much vulnerability was being offered by the participants. It floored me. I just thought, I look forward to the day when we have the Valyous Compass here and maybe we have the statements on the wall over there for everyone to see and be reminded of all the time. Because the Valyous Compass that came out of the visioning forums that we did last year shows that this community is about embodiment. That is the purpose of our community, to walk the talk, to feel God, spirit, source, universe, whatever it is that you call it, in your bones, in your cells, at the atomic and subatomic level, to feel it, not just to know about it, to think about it, to read about it, to talk about it, but to feel it, to be it as you're moving from one now moment to the next and the next and the next. And that's what was happening yesterday through breathwork in the morning and through awareness and forgiveness in the afternoon. And so I have to say, I felt so proud of what is happening in this community. So proud that there are people who are members, who are non-members, people who come once in a while, people who just attend the events, but not necessarily the in-house events, who still feel comfortable enough to share the depth of what was being shared yesterday. They feel safe here. They feel connected. They feel like they belong. And so speaking to connection, that's one of the 4 pillars on our values compass. And the statement to go with connection is the one that we had in our meditation this morning, which is, we nurture relationships and curate experiences that cultivate wholeness. That's what it's all about. And if we replace the we in that statement with I, that's something that we get to do every single moment of every single day. And we're the ones who get to decide how much of that wholeness that we truly are that we want to experience at any given moment. And so yesterday, wow, I saw it in spades. I felt it. I experienced it. I marveled at it. And I just felt so grateful to be part of this unfolding, to be part of this evolution, to be part of this emergence that is known as VTC. So this morning, as I was leaning into what it was that wanted to be shared, knowing that it is Easter Sunday, what was coming up for me was, and I don't know if anyone is going to get this reference, but the audio file in the back row might. One of my favorite bands in the 80s and 90s was Ministry. Yes, a nodding head. Okay, and it was so funny that it came up today because it was the song that came up first. Every Day is Halloween. And as I'm hearing the song going through my head, I'm like, oh my God, the name of the band is Ministry. And so this song was one of their more melodic songs because they were really like an industrial metal goth band. And they just got harder and harder, but with melody and harmony, which is what I appreciated, harder and harder as they went along. And so this Every Day is Halloween was going through my head, and that song is about a guy who shows up the way he shows up, and then there are people who make assumptions about him. And the whole song is about show up as you truly are, regardless of what other people think of you, regardless of what other people's expectations are, what they want you to be, their opinions, all that kind of stuff. And so it's just like, I just want to live my life the way I want to live my life. I want to live my life in alignment with who and what I truly am. And so as this Every Day is Halloween was coming up for me, I was also thinking about, well, there are a lot of people celebrating Easter today, and what is Easter Sunday about? It's about resurrection. And resurrection means coming back to life from death, right? But what it also means is rebirth, right? And when it comes to rebirth, do we have to wait for Easter Sunday to be reborn? Just like you don't have to wait until New Year's Day to make a resolution, you don't have to wait until Easter Sunday for a rebirth. Because every single now moment is a brand spanking new opportunity to be born again, to remember who we are, to show up as the love that we truly are, to live life lovingly, Emma Smiley, to live with the certainty that love is our true nature, VTC today, to know that no matter what is going on around us, that we are always choosing how to show up, how to create our life experience, based on all of this or based on this. And that's what today is about. But it's not just today, it's every moment, it's every day. And so the title of my talk is, Every Moment is Easter Sunday. And I have a mushroom on there. Because I was thinking of what to me signifies almost like a momentary change. Have you ever walked out in your yard and there's nothing, and then rain falls and you're like, oh my God, there's mushrooms everywhere, right? Almost instantaneously they're there. And so that just made me think of how instantaneously we can choose something different. We can choose something new. We can focus our attention on who and what we truly are and show up as that in the grace of this space, or we can continue to get caught up in everything that is going on around us. And so that's what yesterday was about for me. Yesterday, I just felt so moved by the certainty, by the clarity that people were feeling and experiencing, even when there were tears flowing, that they were certain and they were clear that this is a safe space where they belong, where they feel connected, where they feel empowered. And that is what VTC is all about. And so what an absolute gift it was yesterday to see this in action in two different circumstances. And so in between, because there was some time in between, then what Glenn and I did, which a couple of people did, was scoot down to Russell Books because someone in the back row there had a book signing, Brenda, St. Louis. And so we went to visit Brenda at Russell Books and talked to her for a little bit and then wandered around the store. And what I ended up finding was this little, this little Jung, a graphic guide, okay? It's It's wild, these, cartoons and graphic pages and whatever. But there was one on here that really caught my eye, and I didn't write down the page number. But in the store, I'm like, I spent $10 just so I could have access to this one graphic that's in here. Because it reminded me so much of our journey and why it can feel like, I can't even find it right now, why it can feel that life is so hard. And so in there, they talk about how there is this path of sickness, of torture, of death, and then rebirth. And as we're on our journey of discovery, self-discovery, rediscovery, because who and what we are is who and what we are all the time, period, end of sentence. It never changes. Our experience of it changes, our remembrance of it, our relationship to that knowing changes, but the thing itself is the thing itself. Okay? Universe is universe, God is God, spirit is spirit, all the time. It's we who experience God, spirit, source, universe, whatever, differently. And so in this, I thought, yeah, that's it. There's like a sickness at the beginning where it's like, something isn't right. There's something different. There's something more, And so I feel like uncomfortable. I feel kind of nerpy because I know that there's something more to me than like just this, right? And then once you start to learn, once you start to explore, and you're kind of feeling like, oh yeah, this feels really good. Like I know stuff now. I'm aware of stuff now. Then all of a sudden, life can start to fall apart. And you're like, oh my God, what is going on? I thought this was supposed to be helpful. I thought as, the clearer that I get about who and what I truly am, life is supposed to get easier. But it can often unravel because this is growth, right? And that growth can feel so uncomfortable. It can feel so discombobulating. It can feel like torture, right? But the further you go along that journey of opening, of awareness, of understanding, the more you realize, even as you're feeling that life is super hard and how am I ever going to get through this? And then, oh my gosh, this is torture. There is still that in you that knows this is growth. This is expansion. This is an opportunity to move beyond the comfort zone that we've been in for however long, because that comfort zone can no longer contain that wholeness, that allness that we truly are. And so that's when we got to let it. That's when we got to surrender, and that is when we die as who and what we are in that moment. And as soon as we die, we are reborn. Because the container that was holding us before no longer exists, and that wholeness and allness now has more space to be unleashed out into the world, out into our experience. And that's part of what I was feeling and experiencing and so moved by here yesterday. And so again, so grateful for the opportunity to be here, to be part of the leadership that is shepherding, the space and the container for this evolution, this revolution, it feels like sometimes. But ultimately, it comes down to everyone who's sitting here, including me, everyone who's watching online, everyone who has any connection to VTC. Because like I said at the AGM a few weeks ago, for those of you who weren't here, the legacy of Emma Smiley is not a building, it's not a park, it's not a playground, it's not anything concrete. It's each and every individual in this community. It's how you live your life. It's how you embody this, live life lovingly. It's how often you consciously choose to remember, I am God. And so is everyone and everything. That's the legacy, and we get to choose to live it every moment of every day. So what I want to end with here is that it comes down to choice and perspective. Always choice and perspective, okay? Because we're choosing all the time, whether we're aware of it or not. And so our job is to become more aware, more conscious of our choices. And we need to, as we become aware that our perspective is the lens through which we experience everything. It's the lens that we use to create our life. So we receive and we give through that lens. And if that lens is anything less than wholeness, allness, love, compassion, joy, forgiveness, infinite potentiality, we got to clean that lens or we got to get rid of it altogether. So as we continue along our spiritual journey, whether we're building community, leaning into the wisdom of an 80s industrial metal goth classic, or observing Easter Sunday in some form, we are choosing how to live based on what we are paying attention to, consciously or unconsciously. To conform or not to conform, to struggle or to surrender. And so our work is to remember that Easter Sunday isn't just once a year. Every moment is an Easter Sunday, a brand new opportunity to remember who and what we truly are, to consciously experience the infinite potentiality of our being, and to live with certainty that love is our true nature. Thank you, and so it is.